Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a biological mystery that's, well, kind of mind-blowing. Giants and their tiny feasts, the Calorie Paradox. We're going to explore something that honestly feels totally backwards. The absolute most massive land animals on Earth, think elephants, rhinos, hippos, and the absolute biggest creatures in the ocean, the whales, all share one incredibly weird trait. Their food is absolutely microscopic.
So this brings us to a massive question. Why exactly do the most massive animals eat tiny food? I mean, you'd logically assume that a creature the size of a school bus would hunt prey at least the size of a car, right? But they don't. The bigger an animal gets, the smaller its food seems to become. It's a central mystery of biology that seems totally counterintuitive at first glance, but as we're going to see, it makes perfect evolutionary sense.
And we see this wild contrast literally everywhere. You've got these massive land animals surviving entirely on little blades of grass and leaves, while the ocean's biggest whales filter out tiny crustaceans called krill. It's a universal pattern across the animal kingdom. The giants rely entirely on the tiny. But why?
Section 1. Meeting mega-calorie quotas. Let's talk about fueling these massive bodies.
You're probably wondering, why don't these giants just eat big, high-protein meals? Well, first off, super calorie-dense meals are actually incredibly rare in nature. You just can't rely on finding them every single day when you have a massive body to fuel. Second, giant bodies just aren't mobile or agile enough to hunt down and capture large, elusive prey. Imagine a massive blue whale trying to zigzag after a fast giant squid all day. The energy math just doesn't work out. They would burn way more calories chasing it than they'd actually get from eating it.
So what's the solution? If you're a mega creature, you have to meet your mega-calorie quotas with food that is super abundant and requires almost absolutely no effort to procure. They need something that basically just sits there, waiting to be scooped up by the mouthful. They have to trade the high value of a rare large meal for the sheer, reliable volume of tiny ones.
Section 2. How land giants survive by eating tons of leaves.
Now, leaves and grass, they aren't exactly calorie-dense compared to, say, meat. So how does an elephant pull this off? Well, step 1, they just eat massive amounts of it. We're talking hundreds of kilograms of grass and little leaves at a time. Step 2, they utilize their giant, incredibly long digestive tracts. Because you see, the bigger the animal is, the longer that food stays right there in its digestive system. And step 3, they let trillions of microbes go to work. Since the food sits in that massive gut for so long, there are enough microbes to break down all that tough plant matter and wring out the usable calories. It's essentially an incredible internal fermentation factory.
And you know what's crazy? This rule of nature is incredibly consistent throughout history. Even back when dinosaurs roamed the Earth, the very biggest animals were not the apex predators like the T-Rex. Actually, they were the lumbering, leaf-eating vegetarians. This abundance and ease of finding leaves, paired with specialized guts to process huge quantities, is exactly why you see the same pattern in every single terrestrial biome.
All right, moving to Section 3, the ocean calorie problem. Fueling the blue whale.
So if you take an enormous, slow-moving sea giant with a massive gut, theoretically it should just eat the ocean equivalent of grass, right? Phytoplankton. These are huge blooms of tiny, plant-like microorganisms. On paper, it makes perfect sense. Ocean grass for ocean giants.
But, okay, here's where the story takes a huge twist. While land grass meets the mega-calorie demands of terrestrial giants, ocean phytoplankton completely fails to meet the demands of a giant whale. Why? Because these ocean behemoths require so incredibly many calories every single day that even if they ate lots and lots of phytoplankton, it simply isn't calorie-dense enough to power their huge bodies. The biological math completely breaks down in the ocean.
Which brings us to Section 4, the blue whale solution, nature's clever workaround.
Luckily for the whales, those massive phytoplankton blooms attract something else, krill. These are tiny crustaceans, sure, but there are billions of them, and they are absolutely packed with calories. They come together to graze on the phytoplankton in huge, slow-moving, incredibly easy-to-find swarms. All a blue whale has to do is lunge back and forth through a swarm, and it can effortlessly take in more than enough calories to power its massive body. Talk about a biological hack.
I absolutely love this quirky analogy from our source material. Think about it like this. What if there were huge, slow-moving swarms of grasshoppers that elephants could munch on instead of grass? That perfectly captures the krill whale dynamic. If land pachyderms had massive, lazy swarms of protein-packed insects to just casually stroll through and eat, they wouldn't just meet their calorie demands. In fact, on a diet like that, they could pack in even more calories. and land giants would likely get even bigger than they already are.
So, what's the ultimate takeaway here? The absolute rule for the biggest animals on Earth, whether they're walking the savannas or swimming the ocean depths, is this: food things come in small packages. It's a brilliant paradox. To reach a truly massive scale, you have to completely bypass the large, hard-to-catch meals and rely entirely on the smallest, most abundant stuff you can possibly find.
And this leaves us with a truly provocative question to ponder today. If the awe-inspiring giants of the Earth depend entirely on the smallest organisms to survive, what happens to those behemoths if the tiny things disappear? It really makes you think about the incredible, fragile balance of our ecosystems and how the massive macro world relies absolutely on the micro world. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this deep dive completely shifted how you look at the giants of our world. Catch you next time.